Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Fabian here.
Keith here.
So, Chris Rock launches his comedy tour tonight.
Yep.
You think people are going to be interested in what he has to say?
Oh, we know they are.
Absolutely.
His show is sold out, and his entire tour, I imagine, is going to be sold out after this.
Yeah.
Like,
I have a question about this, and I literally stayed up a little last night thinking about this. Chris Rock has not said a word about this yet.
right.
Not a word. And it is interesting that Will Smith has apologized to him. His brother, Chris's brother, Tony Rock, said last night, the apology does not cut it.
Right.
Didn't say why, but Chris has not accepted it either. He hasn't said, thank you, I accept it. Based on everything I know, he's not accepting this apology.
No, it doesn't seem that
No.
way.
And so I guess
And it's not incumbent on him, in my opinion, to do so.
I agree.
Yeah.
But by the way, Will Smith, I know Diddy said it. Diddy's wrong. Diddy said that the two of them spoke and buried the hatchet. We know that's not true.
Right.
They have not spoken. And it is interesting in 2022, Will Smith apologizes on Instagram for the world to see, but doesn't pick up the phone and call Chris.
Yeah, I mean, are we sure that at this point they still haven't spoken?
Yes.
Or, okay, so
Yes.
if that's the case, then yeah, I mean, like, Will Smith, in my opinion, probably should call Chris Rock and apologize, if he is in fact sorry. If he's not sorry, don't do it.
Well, he said he was sorry
said he was
on
sorry.
Instagram
You're
for the
right.
world.
Yeah, exactly. But he doesn't want to make himself look bad or what he did. I mean, he already made himself look bad. But it's the whole thing is like, let me say I'm sorry, but really, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry because
Do you think he's sorry?
no,
No, I don't
absolutely.
think he is.
Harvey, he went out there and he embarrassed his wife. He went out and for national television and embarrassed his wife. He has to go out and say something. And so, yeah, I'm going to apologize because it's probably the PR thing to do.
Yeah.
But really, like, on some personal stuff,
Sure.
I'm not sorry.
It felt like a publicist wrote that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was the case, and you can even tell, you can see the clues in how Will Smith and the Smith family at large feel about it, because him and Jada were united. They were holding hands afterwards. You saw them. She was holding his hand. So she clearly thought you did the right thing. She was there supporting him. His son Jaden came out and said something he tweeted to the effect, "That's how we do it," clearly supporting his old man.
Right.
And then the Smith family was a united front
That's
going
how
out.
we do it?
Yeah.
I know. I mean, every time I see or read that, it's like, really?
Yeah, and we're gonna get into, and look,
Well-
I've been doing I've been trying to do a lot of listening, because there's obviously two camps here, like people understanding / justifying / defending Will Smith, and then the people that are just full blown condemning it, and then there's a small little group in the middle that are trying to achieve both things at the same time. And
Most people at this point think Will was totally out of. Well,
Oh, for
How
sure.
do you defend Will Smith?
So
in
here's the
this?
thing.
I mean,
So-
How on earth do you defend Will Smith?
You don't defend the violence part in terms of him
Sure.
slapping him, but the part of taking up for your wife and saying what he said. If he did the outburst and just said, keep my wife's name out your mouth,
Yeah.
I'm completely
Okay,
fine
so
with that.
let me ask you a question. Bill Maher was on TMZ Live yesterday,
Sure.
and we're going to get into Chris Rock in a minute because he's in Boston and the
Right.
show's going to be amazing. But what Bill Maher said yesterday, and I thought it was interesting because it comes on the heels of what Jada had said, which we're going to get into in a second, that she said she didn't care what people thought about her hair.
Right.
Bill is saying hair loss, and I understand. I'm not embracing one side or the other on this, but what Maher was saying was this is not leukemia.
Yeah.
and
it's
a
not.
lot of people suffer from hair loss,
Yeah.
and it may be, something you don't talk about, but in terms of things that are, go to somebody's core,
Sure.
he was saying
It's not that big a deal.
Right.
But there's people that have different feelings about
I
that. I
understand.
have a family member who does have hypologia, and let me tell you, like I have an aunt that has that, and I was talking to my mother about this, and she's like, she's very close to her, and she's telling me like, look, like it's something with a woman, like when they lose their hair.
With black women
With black
specifically?
women
Okay.
specifically,
Okay.
like when they lose their hair, it's an emotional attachment, and it's
Yeah.
tough. It's something hard to get over with. And so, like she told me, I can vent and understand what Jada's going through, and your aunt what she's going through when she talks about it, and it's really it's a touchy subject for her.
well, but
Yeah.
what? But then let's play this because this is what Jada said 4 days before the Oscars.
Being a black woman and dealing with hair in Hollywood, especially in the era that I came up in, having your hair look as European as possible was always the thing. So if I'm doing a cover, everybody, no, we want your hair straight and flowy. And it's like, all right, cool, but that's not really like what my hair likes to do. So I had to learn to get the courage to just go, nah, I'm not doing that. Which is why I feel the freedom today. I don't give two craps what people feel about this bald head of mine, because guess what? I love it.
Does that change the conversation?
So
It changes a little bit, but for me, I look at it as that what she's doing is a controlled environment where she's talking about beautiful and being black and how you want women, inspiring women to have their self-esteem and be proud of who you are no matter what's going on. This situation right here, you're in front of people at the same level as you, and you're on national television. Your husband has a spot. This is the very important light, and now the attention is now on you and your bald head, and let me clown you about your bald head. That's a different control environment.
Yeah, and
so I understand.
And as far as Jada saying that okay, look, she's as far as what the words that she's speaking, I know words matter. She's saying I don't give two craps. Some people are saying maybe that's just her putting on a brave face and a strong face, but how does she actually feel on the inside? We don't know. Nobody knows the answer to that except Jada Pinkett
But do you
Smith.
have to accept what she says at face value?
You do. You should accept it at face value, but you should also have a little bit of understanding. Like, okay, I'm taking what you're saying at face value, but that is not the end all be all to this conversation.
So Chris Rock, we're told, had no idea she had alopecia.
Sure.
So maybe that makes a difference. Maybe it doesn't.
Right.
But in terms of the level of aggrievement by Will Smith.
Sure. And
listen to what Bill Maher said about this, because I thought this was really interesting, the way he used the Twitter metaphor to kind of explain it.
It was sort of like cancel culture encapsulated, because at first you saw he was laughing at the joke, right? This is what happens a lot with cancel stuff. At first, oh, it's funny. And then you look around, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be offended. And then there's the overreaction. He was like the Twitter mob come alive. I'm okay with it. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to be offended. Now I'm going to just wildly overreact.
What do you think?
So, like, I yesterday when I heard this, I completely agreed, but that was just based on how I interpreted things at the time. And this whole conversation really comes down to how do you interpret it? How do you perceive it? For me, it's all in the eye of the beholder. In Bill Maher's perspective, and a lot of people, like you said, take it at face value. He was laughing. We have to take that at face value. What does that mean? Presumably what that means at face value is that he found it funny. What was actually going on inside? Who knows? Was it a nervous chuckle? Was he laughing just out of pressure? It's unclear. Well, only Will Smith knows the answer to that.
Except I will say this.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it may be nervous laughter.
Sure.
It may be genuine laughter.
Sure.
But whatever it is, it didn't propel him out of his seat until
Not right then and there.
Until he looked over at Jada.
Sure.
And then it changed.
It did. And I've spoken to so many different guys about this, and some guys say, and some guys who are in relationships right now, they tell me, they're like, look, bro, like, if I was with my girl and something like that kind of happened, and I looked at my girl and I saw that, one, she was genuinely hurt, and two, I saw this kind of, not like an order, but sort of like a look, like, really, you're gonna really like sit there and let that happen? And like, look, this is I'll admit, this is toxic masculinity or just masculinity in general, or maybe chivalry. Who knows? You can slice it many different ways, but a lot of guys
or a crime.
Yeah, or a crime too. And the crime is the result of you deciding to take it to this level.
Right.
I don't think Will Smith should have taken it to the hitting level. If he would have gotten, like Keith said, if he would have gotten up on stage, if he got
up on stage, it would be terrible.
If him and Jada were that aggrieved and they found it this offensive, he could have achieved the exact same thing without putting hands on him.
Are you telling me that Will Smith, it would be okay for him just to get on stage and walk up to him?
After a certain point, Harvey.
What was the point? He said he made a G.I. Jane joke and then moved on.
Harvey, but after a certain point, it's not about the Academy anymore. It's about me and my wife. It's me and my wife. It's my relationship. You don't know.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me then it would have been okay for him to walk up on stage to do what he did, but just not to hit him?
Let me tell you, if he
would have been better, that would have been a better option.
Well, it would not be a crime, but would it be?
Look,
what is wrong? Hold on. First off, after
What if J.K. Simmons, remember the Timothy Chalamet joke?
Yeah.
What if he said, made me look like an old guy? You just to Amy Schumer. What if he got on stage and walked up to her?
See, that's the thing. Like, we cannot control.
And everybody walked up.
We can't control what what triggers people. We can't control what they do.
Kanye West walked up on the Taylor's. Kanye West,
and he did that, and he got slammed
just for walking up.
And Will Smith would have probably gotten slammed as well for disrupting the Oscars if he had not hit him. But at least people would have been like, well, at least he didn't hit him, and he would have still had a little bit of grace to his name that he does not now have. He's lost that grace.
But we talked. Fabian and I were talking about this just before you walked in. I said, you don't know what that woman has gone through behind closed doors.
Yeah,
she could be crying every night.
I understand
this.
that, but this is she talks about this all the time. She's talked about this 4 days before she talked about it, and I'm assuming, based on what we know, that Chris Rock didn't hear what she said 4 days before, but also didn't know she had alopecia.
Right. A lot of people didn't know that she had alopecia. A lot of people didn't.
So if
sure,
he's looking at her, because honestly, I'm just going to say, I think she's beautiful.
Absolutely,
she is.
I mean, without
hair or no hair, it doesn't matter. She's
beautiful.
Gorgeous. Yeah, 100%.
And so if he looked at her and made that joke and had no idea. What are you saying? That Will Smith should process that and say, I'm going to go up and defend my wife's son?
No, we're not saying. All I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to understand what might have possibly triggered this, because that's important. Like, understanding the motive here. Trying to analyze
Can I
the
make
motive.
a suggestion?
Sure.
That possibly this didn't have anything to do with hair. And I'll explain. And you and I talked about this.
Yeah.
That in 2016, when Will Smith... when Chris Rock hosted the Oscars, that's when Jada
took shots at her too at that point.
Well, Jada said she's boycotting because there wasn't enough inclusion in the Oscars.
Right.
And Chris Rock went in hard and basically, said Jada's irrelevant and Will Smith, his performance in Wild Wild West sucked.
Right.
That created a lot of beef between them, but I found out something yesterday that, and I remembered it. There is more.
Behind the scenes. I'm sure there's stuff happens behind the scenes all the time.
I remember this happened at the time. We were told that Jada and Will were trying to get Chris to boycott the Oscars as well.
Wow.
And my understanding is Chris's reaction was, I'm a black man that's going to host the Oscars, which is the point.
Yeah.
So they disagreed.
This is my opportunity.
So they disagreed on this.
Sure.
And they've had beef ever since, because after they disagreed, he went in hard on both of them. And I think when they're sitting there, there's a lot of history there, and it's not good history, and they are just waiting for this guy to take a shot, and boom, he does it.
Yeah.
And they're like, you see, he did it to me again.
I agree that there is a personal level here, that the fact that it was Chris Rock specifically,
could be what triggered it.
That could have been part of what triggered it. I really feel like there's no one clear answer as to what set Will Smith off. I think it's multi-layered. I think there's the fact that if you read his memoir, he talks about the fact when he was a kid that he felt helpless and he felt like a coward because on several occasions he watched his dad beat his mom, never stepped up, never did anything. That has haunted him. That has haunted him throughout his whole life, he says. And not only that, but there's the layer of Will and Jada and their relationship, and it's a bizarre relationship. Supposedly they have some sort of an open marriage. They air out their dirty laundry in public. A lot of times Will Smith has been publicly humiliated. And a lot of people say it's Jada's fault. She's the one who brings him onto the red table talk.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say that Will Smith, and this is not for me to weigh in or not, but a lot of people say Will Smith has been castrated by Jada herself.
But Fabian, but they've always been open about their relationship, so I don't think it's
not
just
as much as they were in the past few years.
Well, the red table talk thing, I don't think that's part of it, but I think Harvey is onto something. That the fact that 2016, him talking during the butt of his material.
Yeah.
Then you got what's going on before, not supporting and not boycotting the Oscars.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that all has something to build up to it, and then that probably was a trigger for him to go.
By the way, I read a report. I think it was from Variety or THR. They claimed that sources were telling them that joke, that G.I. Jane line, was unscripted. That during rehearsals, that was not part of Chris Rock's initial joke, his set or whatever. And he just kind of worked it in right on the spot.
That's kind of the way I was told too.
So,
so I have another question because I find this really interesting. Again, you know my feeling about Bill Maher.
Love Bill Maher.
He's the smartest guy out there as far as I'm concerned in this whole space. And so, he was at one of the parties and talked about something that I wondered about too. What if Chris Rock hit back?
That would have been ugly.
Well-
That would have been. It would have been. It would have been warranted. Chris Rock was more than warranted to hit back if he wanted
Okay,
to.
I want to play.
And at that point, it would have become.
Of course he was.
It would have become the most ugly thing we'd ever seen ever on on television. And then Will
Fabian,
Smith would have.
if you had your
Will
hands-
Smith would be even more criticized at this point, saying, "See
Fabian,
what you started. See what you did."
If you had your hands behind your back and somebody walked up to you and slapped you that hard, would you hit him back?
And it depends on the. It depends. And the moment
Yes.
I like to say that I would react or do
Yes.
something, but Chris Rock was the bigger person here.
Well, let me tell you how big. This is what Bill said happened at one of these parties.
I'll tell you something interesting. I was at the Vanity Fair party. So, it's a very clubby atmosphere, and everybody was, of course, talking about this. First of all, it just happened. People were processing. I was talking to I'd just say a very prominent member of the African-American community, a big celebrity. And somebody said, might have been me, said, what would have happened if Chris had reacted differently and hit back? And this person said he couldn't. He had the whole race on his shoulders.
What do you think?
No. It's not about having the whole look. It was produced by a predominantly African American, African American production. Yes, we know that. We do know that that you had two African American women hosts.
Yeah.
That were there as the first of ever. Yes, it was like a big moment, but to put the whole community over your shoulders.
Can I ask you?
I don't agree with that. And let me tell you why. Because that goes all out the window when you physically assault me. I'm sorry. It's not. It's about me.
Oh, because now you're putting in your Chris Rock shoes. Okay.
You're as a man. I'm not gonna. I was always told that you don't make the first hit, but if you get hit, you react.
Undeniable. That's
Yeah.
undeniable. What I want to ask you though is, he didn't hit back,
Right.
and I think what the person, whoever that was, talking to Bill Maher,
Mhm.
had said that there would have been consequences had this erupted into a fist fight on stage.
It was
and what he's saying is
Within the black community, you mean,
well,
or?
look, I'm asking the question because what Bill is saying is that man, I don't know who it was. It was a very prominent black entertainer.
It was.
But he's saying that Chris had to process, what do I do, almost instantly, and he's saying this would have looked so bad.
Do you think Chris Rock was actually thinking about
I
that?
don't know. I'm asking you guys.
Yeah.
It was an embarrassing moment. It was an embarrassing moment when you sit back and you process everything and you look at what was going on. It was an embarrassing moment for the African American community, but it was not some. It was, and why I'm saying it was an embarrassing moment because you had two black men go up there.
Right.
We've always struggled to have this opportunity,
Yeah.
and we finally get this opportunity, and this is what it came down to.
Right.
So it was an embarrassing moment of that. But as far as him having the whole community on his shoulders, and if he reacted, no, not at all. I don't agree with that statement that Bill Maher said in terms of that. Well, whoever he heard that from, I don't agree with that statement.
So this is such a nuanced situation, and this also kind of comes down to what's in the eye of the beholder. No one person, and even no one person, obviously this goes without saying, I feel like no one person in the black community is going to have the same opinion on this. I was talking to Cachet out there, who, by the way, she's one of our writers. She is black, and she had a point of view saying that Zoe, we don't have to get too much into this, but Zoe Kravitz, who is biracial, half black, half white, came out as anti-Will Smith. She posted 2 Instagram posts yesterday saying, oh, this is me in my dress at the Oscars, where, by the way, apparently we're assaulting people now. A lot of people that are pro Will Smith came out and sort of started crucifying her. They started airing out all these old alleged misdeeds of hers, basically saying, see, like, you're one to talk kind of thing. And I disagree with that entire premise. But I asked Cachet about this because another take on the Zoe Kravitz thing was that it seems that, like, some people on Black Twitter, as it were, which is a real thing, by the way, they took Zoe Kravitz coming out as anti-Will Smith as her also coming out seemingly as anti-black. And I don't know. I don't really understand.
What?
But let me. And I asked her about this, but she explained it well. She basically said, "Look, to your point, like, this is a big moment for the African American community. Will Smith getting an Oscar this year was going to be huge. It ended up playing into a lot of stereotypes about black men and this and that. So it ended up looking very bad for the African American community. And I guess some people in that community feel like people in our community should not kick us your own community when we're down. We're down right now. This is a down moment for all of us.
They're not supposed to talk about it.
I
think it's.
again,
but- well, wait a minute.
I'm not saying that I agree or disagree, but I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand.
But I'm wondering, isn't it the opposite that
You have to talk about it.
Yes, I mean
You have
it's
to
the
talk about it.
opposite.
Right. And again, there's no one clear opinion on this. It's a lot, and go ahead.
What frustrates me about that is that, like, the thing is, like, I had a conversation before with my mother about this as well. Is like, this is the problem with us in my community. Sometimes we talk about things. We want to all agree. Like we're all gonna hoorah and agree for just one statement, everything.
Right.
But we don't talk about it. We don't have discussions about it. And this is the problem. This is the issue that we're having. Like, I'll be honest with you. This is why we don't have a prominent African American leader right now, because we're afraid to talk about things and get crucified for it. We're afraid that if I disagree with an African American, another African American,
You're
and
seen
what they
as like
agree, then they look at me as a whole different
traitor.
person. Yeah, traitor.
Yeah.
No, it's not that. It's okay to have discussions. That's the thing. Like, when you
Right.
have discussions and you have debates and you have a disagreement about something, it's about working those things and having understanding for both sides.
Right.
And when you do that, that's why I'm saying, like, this is the issue we're having. This is why we don't have a young black, and I'm telling you, a young black African American leader right now. Because we don't have those discussions, and we're afraid to.
Okay,
Right.
so
And
we're
afraid to disagree.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
We'll end it this way, because what you're saying, Keith, I think there are some people, and I want to go back to Bill Maher for a second. He thinks that maybe Chris Rock is that hero, and he uses an analogy. You guys are too young. I remember this when John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 13 years old, but
Right.
I remember it
Yeah.
so well.
Oh,
And when Jackie Kennedy just showed this incredible courage and just drew this
composure.
oh my God!
yeah.
I mean, he felt that she made the nation feel like we can get past this, because there were a lot of people who didn't feel that way
Sure.
when he was assassinated. Here's what Bill said.
But at that moment, it was sort of on a much lower level, but sort of a Jackie Kennedy after the assassination moment, where we're looking to someone to kind of like just pull it together, dignity, and get the train back on the tracks. And he did it. And I think he should get a lot of credit for it.
Interesting point.
For sure. And can we throw to one other point too? I want to talk Jim Carrey, because he had such a good soundbite. And what happened to Zoe Kravitz, her speaking out against Will Smith and then getting crucified on Twitter with everybody airing her old alleged misdeeds.
I know.
But let me explain, though. The exact same thing happened to Jim Carrey yesterday. He went on CBS. He was talking to Gayle King.
Yeah.
He was ferociously coming out against Will Smith, saying,
And the Academy.
And the Academy and everybody who stood up for him said, how could you stand up for him? Hollywood is spineless. And then when Jim Carrey was also trending yesterday, and I hopped in the trend, and sure enough, the exact same thing was happening to Jim Carrey, where people were saying, oh, you're one to talk, aren't you? There's rumors and there's stories about Jim Carrey being a terror on set of movies, like harassing people and just being a menace, like just getting way too much into character, and bothering people to the point where it's like bad and or uncomfortable. So if everyone was airing out all these old things about just ad hominem attacks.
Yeah.
And that's a trend that I see happening online. That's
all Twitter is.
That's all Twitter is. But it's just like why do people? Why can't we talk substance?
But I guess the question is, why is Twitter driving any conversation in this country?
Honestly,
why is Twitter driving conversations?
Because it's an open platform for everybody to voice their opinion.
But it's not everybody.
It's true.
You're right. It is. But Elon Musk sort of said this on Twitter over the weekend, and he was theorizing about possibly buying Twitter. I mean, this is a whole other conversation, but he was saying, since Twitter has become the de facto public town square, and it has, there's just no denying it, whether it should be or shouldn't be, it is. They have a greater responsibility to, free speech and all this type of stuff. That was kind of his whole point. But I agree. Like, Twitter is a toxic place, man. It really is.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
But look, we're going to end this way. There is a show tonight. We are going to.
Oh, Chris Rock show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's in Beantown. He has a show tonight. He's going to talk about this, presumably.
We're going to be there, and we will let everybody know on our website as soon as this thing is over if Chris addresses it.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's going to.
I think he is. I think he is Harvey. But I think he uses it.
He hasn't said.
It's not even the elephant in the room. It's the elephant taking up the entire. It's the room.
He has to get it out. He has to get it out and get it over with.
Yeah.
But he uses it in his material.
Yeah.
He's a professional.
I'm not sure though. I'm not sure if it's going to be direct or if it's going to be oblique.
Like Jimmy Fallon was like oblique.
Like Jimmy Fallon was oblique. But I think if you look at Chris Rock's history,
right.
I don't know that he gets into this kind of stuff on stage. He may.
Yeah, he might.
But
I mean, I think he has to.
All I know is I'm super interested to know what happens at this concert.
And like the one last thing I'll say too is that look, the violence is wrong. I think most people and most everybody can agree with that. But like the question for me is like, okay, can we at least sort of try to understand without the full blown crucifixion of Will Smith? That's where I'm kind of at this point. Like I'm just trying to understand, and even if I disagree with what the rationale that different people have, and everyone has different points of view on it, but like I'm just trying to understand. It's like, okay, I can sort of understand the violence is wrong. It should not have risen to the level of him slapping him. That's absurd in my opinion. But can we understand? It's a multi-layered thing. It's a multi-layered phenomenon. It really is. There's so many layers to this.
And I'm just gonna go back and just say, like, I agree with what you were saying earlier about what happened in 2016 to Will Smith. Just the history in Will Smith and Chris Rock and all them have, and I think that all build up to it.
Sure.
And like you said, it's deeper than what happened.
It is. I think it is
definitely
deeper.
Okay. Go to the website later tonight and let's see what happens at the Chris Rock concert. We'll see you guys. See you Friday.